A new bombshell study shows that around 55% of those who find themselves left of center, let's just say, advocate for the end of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We have seen other studies, we have seen other metrics showing the left overwhelmingly believes the use of violence is justified in pushing their political agenda. And it's coming to a head now. Pam Bondi is receiving death threats as she calls for the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. Movements across this country in support of Luigi, they are projecting images of Luigi Mangione as a saint, calling for him to be freed not because they believe he's innocent, but because they believe he actually assassinated a healthcare CEO. We have the attacks on Tesla across the country that are still ongoing, with another story coming out of the Pacific Northwest and what appears to be another arson attack of some sort. My friends, Summer of Love 2.0 may be starting up, as this weekend we saw massive protests, either anti-Trump, anti-Israel, or in general, leftist, Western protests. They kind of just come together and coalesce around the idea that they hate what the West is, and they're willing to work with whoever to get what they want. Now, at the same time, we have Donald Trump's efforts in the marketplace with tariffs and other trade policies. This has resulted in a volatile market, which has a lot of people upset, namely older folks with retirement accounts. When I take a look at these two big stories, and I see the left increasingly becoming, let's just say, radicalized, and then I take a look at where the priorities of the political establishment is, it says to me that we are currently on a collision course for collapse. That is, Gen Z holds very little wealth. Millennials hold very little wealth, if at all. Gen X holds a little bit, and the boomers hold a substantial amount. The policies so far from this nation over the past couple of decades has been to prioritize the older generation, those who are more likely to vote for obvious reasons, and those who are more likely to hold, hard assets as well as even liquid assets, but still not cash. That is to say, Gen Z, millennials, and now Gen Alpha are being ignored and left behind. A youthful generation with no opportunities, no hope, finding no path forward or no light at the end of the tunnel. Well, they act irrationally. This is going to create a hotbed of extremist activity. As we saw from Donald Trump's actions and the tariffs and everything that was going on the other day, still, the narrative from prominent elitists was, oh no, my stocks, which means literally nothing to the average person, especially to a young person. We can see where the priorities of the established media narrative lies, and it is not in helping young people survive. So where does this end up? 10 years from now, these Gen Z individuals will be in their 30s. They will be, they should be running industry. They won't be. They won't have the experience. So they either will be put in positions they cannot handle, or they won't enter these positions at all. But the voting bloc will begin to shift. As the boomers age out, stability goes along with it. And as the younger generation becomes old enough to take the reins of this country, they are not taking it in the direction of industry and stability. They are taking it in the direction of instability and violence. Now, it's not just the left, but it largely is the left. There are elements on the right, though small, who are talking about being prepared and things of that nature. But for the most part, the right, even younger right-leaning individuals, are not advocating for destabilization. They're advocating for hard work and meritocracy. But on the left, this is what we are seeing. And a young generation, I should say an aging generation that's becoming adults who can't have the American dream, or at least as they see it, it's going to get pretty dang wild in this country, my friends. Smash that like button. Share the show with everyone. Shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club for shouting us out. We really do appreciate it. Welcome to the Rumble Morning Lineup. I am Tim Pool, your host for this hour. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We've got a lot to break down, starting with this study showing assassination culture is spreading. And you've seen it on social media. It's become a meme. It's become a trend. It's become pop culture for largely left-leaning young people, more than half advocating for assassinations. New developments on one of the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And of course, the ongoing attacks, Luigi Mangione and more. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee. We have a whole bunch of different coffee. And just for you guys, use promo code RUMBLE30 and you will get 30% off everything, even subscriptions. I'm pretty sure we lose money doing it, but we did it anyway. Ian's Graphene Dream back in stock, of course, selling very fast. But don't forget, we got Appalachian Nights, Stand Your Grounds. And for those that prefer a decaf, we have Sleepy Joe and Unwoke. Don't forget, we've also got Misty Mountains Costa Rican. And we offer you this promo for our Rumble viewers. 30% off, Rumble30. And don't forget to pick up go to boonieshq.com, pick up a Step-on Snack, and find out skateboard if you haven't already. We've only got a little bit left in stock, 825 size, but these are all made in America. So not too concerned at all about them tariffs. But go to Boonies HQ, pick up one of the boards we got. We got the 28th Amendment. We've got the boobies. If you like boobies, the blue-footed booby bird, grab it while you can. We'll have more in stock for sure. But let's jump to this news from Fox News. New bombshell study reveals assassination culture spreading on the left under President Trump. Study data links rising support for Trump's assassination to online extremism, left-wing radicalization. A disturbing new report reveals that violent political rhetoric online, including calls for the murder of public figures like Trump and Elon Musk, is being increasingly normalized, particularly on the left. The report from the Network Contagion Research Institute found that a growing number of people are willing to justify and even applaud killing in the name of politics and a warped sense of social justice. The chilling change appears to have accelerated in recent months. Quote, what was formerly taboo culturally has become acceptable. Joe Finkelstein, the lead author of the report, told Fox News Digital. We are seeing a clear shift, glorification, increased attempts, and changing norms, all converging into what we define as assassination culture. The NCRI study traces the cultural shift back to the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson by Luigi Mangione, allegedly, in December of 2024. What followed, researchers say, was a viral wave of memes that turned Mangione into a folk hero. According to the study, these memes have sparked copycat behavior, targeting other figures associated with wealth and conservative politics. Indeed, I think we have a story here. Let me try and let me see if we have this one. I can pull it up. There was a story about a man who went into a pharmacy and began shooting at, looks like, I'm not entirely sure. Here we are. I do have the story pulled up, actually. Here it is for you, my friends. Suspected Madara Walgreens killer had grudge against large pharmacies, police say. We'll come back to the story in a minute, but this is a man who walked into a Walgreens and killed an employee over his grudge against pharmacies. How many of you heard this story? How many of you heard the story about a guy, this was a week ago, in California, who walked in and killed an employee of a Walgreens because of pharmacies? This is, I guarantee you, 100% because of left-wing rhetoric advocating for these things. There was another insurance CEO who was shot at in his home. They go on to say, according to the study, they've sparked copycat behavior. Quote, it's not just Luigi anymore. We're seeing an expansion. Trump, Musk, and others are now being openly discussed as legitimate targets, often cloaked in meme culture and gamified online dialogue. A ballot measure in California, darkly named the Luigi Mangione Access to Healthcare Act, is just one real-world outgrowth of this online movement. We can see here in this chart, over half of left-leaning respondents said killing Donald Trump would be at least somewhat justified, according to NCRI's national survey. The study found that 55% of self-identified left-of-center participants justified Trump's assassination to some degree, while 48% did the same for Elon Musk. Researchers say the findings reflect a growing tolerance of political violence among ideological extremists. NCRI conducted a nationally representative survey of more than 1,200 U.S. adults, weighted to reflect national consensus demographics. The findings were stark. Some 38% of respondents said it would be at least somewhat justified. I'm not going to read this, but they believed these people want the death of Trump and Elon Musk. When counting only left-leaning respondents, it jumped to 55% and Musk to 48%. These are not isolated opinions. They are part of a tightly connected belief system linked to what we call left-wing authoritarianism. My friends, it's a combination of factors, but it is expanding. It's not just left-wing authoritarianism. A large component of this is meme culture in general on the left. This is ice bucket challenge level. Follow the horde, follow the group, stay with the in crowd. Take a look at these. Let's talk about Israel and Palestine. Why are, I know, I just lit the whole internet, right? Why are people so fervent about these issues? It's one country, it's at war, there's U.S. funding. I can understand the deep connection, but I don't understand why it becomes the principal issue for so many people, to where we've actually had people comment on Timcast IRL saying they would prefer Joe Biden wins if he puts pressure on Israel. That's the world they live in. Me, neutral-ish, I guess. It's a country, I don't know. I don't think we should be funding them. But same goes for Ukraine. Ukraine may be a better example, because I do understand their general grievances with Israel and our longstanding alliance and what that's turned into, but Ukraine's maybe a better example. Why are there people setting fire to Tesla charging stations and then spray painting "Long live Ukraine"? Why are there people flying Ukrainian flags on their houses? Why are members of Congress chanting "Slava Ukraini"? These people are insane. It is mass formation psychosis. They're nuts. That's just it. Now, I don't mind all that much when you do the ice bucket challenge. That is, someone goes on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and they see a video of someone dumping ice over them to promote a nonprofit or awareness to some kind of disorder or disease. Okay. You get a bunch of views. Everybody wants to participate. Remember those, what were those dances people would do where everybody would freeze and then the music would break and everyone would start doing a crazy dance? Remember the dancing during TikTok? These are mass formation moments where everybody wants to be a part of the in crowd. Now, it's fine if you're dancing, albeit maybe a little creepy. But what happens when political extremism calls for violence and terror and the destruction of this country are the meme? Now, I do believe foreign countries want this to persist, which is why I think TikTok should be acquired by a U.S. company and brought into the fold of under the U.S. authority to some degree. I don't trust the government in regulating these things entirely, but we would have the opportunity to file lawsuits, FOIA requests, etc., against the company. Maybe not so much FOIA, but FOIA in terms of how the government interacts with them, and lawsuits to determine whether or not they're breaking any laws or rules. As it stands right now, we have no control. So people who go on TikTok are going to be inundated with leftist ideology, and they're going to adopt it. I've discussed mind breaking before on numerous shows, but it really is simple, and it really does happen. First, let me just say, hey guys, there are a lot of prominent individuals, and their followings are completely fake. But they get invited to big events. Because the talent agencies, the bookers, the political individuals, they don't know what a real follower or a fake follower is. All they know is, homie's got 3 million followers on Instagram, must be big. Then you look at his content, he gets no traction, no traffic, doesn't matter. They don't know that. They just say, we want to invite this guy who's big on Instagram, because they don't know. This is a entry-level component of how the mind-breaking works, of how the manipulation works. But let me tell you guys some secrets, okay? Not really secrets. It is extremely easy to go onto Google Ads. You can target a single video and run ads on it. Now, granted, they make you choose like at least 5 videos, something like this effect, but you could choose a small handful of videos that represent a certain idea and dump money into those videos specifically. The end result being the person who made those videos, they see more money coming in and they say, I should make more of this content. When you are looking at it algorithmically, it's really easy for a foreign country just to promote certain content. The U.S. did it with woke ideology, and it appears that TikTok does it with anti-Israel ideology. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who are anti-Israel who don't want to believe that, but the Axios data shows that there was an inversion of sentiment indicating that there was an intentional algorithmic switch to promote pro-Palestine and anti-Israel content on the platform. Again, by all means, I'll say defund Israel and we should not be providing anything or be involved in their entanglements. But this data does exist. Dispute it, please, because I know a lot of people get real heated on these issues. But it does look like there are foreign interests intent on manipulating and gaming the system, and it is a fact. Now, what that means for young people in this country, ask yourself why it is they are so hell-bent on supporting Ukraine. See, that's U.S. psychological operations. The U.S. wants American youth to be pro-Ukraine war, and they are. Not entirely, but many. And it makes no sense. The people going out and destroying Teslas and things like this. It is, I would just describe it as dead internet theory. There are largely bots seeking to manipulate and game the system to trick you into thinking certain ideas are popular or not. Most people, however, are not woke. Most people do not like wokeness, but they batter and beat you down and tell you this is what you must do. Well, let's read more. They say, when asked whether destroying a Tesla dealership was justified, nearly 4 in 10 respondents agreed it was to some degree. Among self-identified left-of-center participants, support for vandalism and property damage was significantly higher. Property destruction wasn't just an outlier opinion. It clustered tightly with support for political assassinations and other forms of violence, said Finkelstein. This points to a coherent belief system, not just isolated grievances. Tesla has become a stand-in for broader frustrations about capitalism, tech power, and conservative politics. Burning down a dealership isn't just a protest, it's a performance, a signal of belonging to a radical group. That is, it's an ice bucket challenge. Finkelstein said that while some level of violent sentiment exists on the right, what we found was a statistically higher endorsement for political murder on the left, 41% more than among right-leaning participants. The report singles out Blue Sky, a social media platform favored by progressive users, as a major amplifier of extremist ideation. Blue Sky was modeled as a safe alternative to Twitter for the left, but what it's become is an extremist platform. It functions today much like 4chan or Gab once did for far-right ideologies. These platforms are now lead indicators of violent real-world trends. I will stress this as well, my friends. Despite what they might say about 4chan or Gab, people weren't, 10 years ago, well, not 14 years ago, whatever, I was on 4chan all the time. People weren't calling for murdering anybody. There was offensive stuff on it, but the left overtly says they want death. And that's crazy, especially where we are today. According to NCRI's open source analysis, Blue Sky saw a spike in engagement on posts referencing Mangione, Trump, and Musk, crossing over 200,000 posts and 2 million engagements in just months. Reddit currently hosts pro-Mangione communities with tens of thousands of members. Finkelstein believes the psychological roots of assassination culture are a mix of ideological radicalism and feelings of powerlessness, particularly in the aftermath of electoral losses. When people feel like they have no say, no future, and no leadership offering a vision, they become susceptible to radical ideation. And that's when the memes turn into permission structures for violence. It's not just that. It turns into a means of recognition. Now, there is an important component outside just losing an election. For the young people that are propagating these ideas, they have no future. They view themselves as a lost generation. They have no stocks. They have no savings. They have no good jobs. They post all the time about how they've been left behind, how they were raised in economic crises over and over and over again. And then they turn to violence. So I ask you all, jump 100 years into the future and look back at this historical moment. Let's say it does lead to revolution, civil war, or otherwise. The narrative's actually already being written, and I feel like it should be obvious. Sometimes I look at the news and I'm like, how did we not predict this? It's so obvious it was going to happen. Take a look at history. Now take a look at where we are. A generation raised in, 3 different economic crises? Gen Z born just before or after 9/11. When the country was in this state of perpetual terror and foreign invasions and economic uncertainty. Then you get 2008, increased economic uncertainty. Then you get toward the end of the 2010s, the lockdowns. These are the lives of Gen Z. Constant crisis after crisis. Now, the funny thing is, I hear from young people, they say that nothing ever happens. And I'm just shocked because I'm like, in the past 10 years, it's been nothing but happenings. But imagine that 100 years from now, and they say, this individual who rose up and became a revolutionary leftist who committed assassinations or whatever, grew up in economic uncertainty and constant destabilization, fiat currencies, loan, government bailouts, chaos and crisis, war and conflict. You've got a narrative there. And it seems to align with the stories we've gotten from the past, that typically these dictators, and not always just dictators, but people who take over, whatever form that is, You hear about their life stories and about how they grew up in turmoil. Let me tell you something, my friends. The American Revolution is truly an amazing story that I think most Americans don't read and should. It is not the story of on 1776, July 4th, they signed the document and said, we're free. It's actually a year and 1 month before the signing, the Revolutionary War had already begun. The Revolutionary period actually spanned over 20 years. That means there were children who grew up in a period of oppressive British politics on the colonies. They were children during this turmoil and conflict with soldiers taking people for conscription, occupying their homes. And so as teenagers, they watched the beginning of conflict throughout the country and political turmoil. And then some of them in their 20s saw the war began. And then a year later, signed the Declaration of Independence. These people grew up in a state of political turmoil. How about this even? The conflict that led up to the revolution was going on, I think they say it was about 10 years before and 10 years after the signing of the Declaration or something to that effect. That means there could have been a kid born at the beginning of the revolutionary period and grew up in a world of conflict and violence. And then by the time they were older, fought in that war. They were born after the conflict began, but fought in it as a late teen when conscription was going around and the fighting was happening. I think people don't understand that for the same as World War I. People who were born during World War I who fought in World War II. The conflict leads to, I don't know, maybe you'd call it people who are strong in that they're not easily dissuaded, as it were, towards their ideological ends, for better or for worse. What I'm saying right now is these justifications and the calls for violence that we are seeing and the escalation of it, I think is a core component in a generation that feels like they are cut out. So when the market crisis happens the other day or over the past week, and all we hear about is the 401ks, the 401ks. I tell you, man, Gen Z doesn't have 401ks. About 1 in 3 have a 401k, and in it, they have only a few $1,000s, if anything at all. And that's probably not even a reflection. That's the median. Meaning there's a very small amount of wealthy Gen Zers with a 401k, and the majority have nothing. Among millennials, guess what? Hey, it's a bit better. Around 60% of millennials have a 401k. Yeah, I know they're in their 40s, right? They have about $10,000 to $20,000 in their 401k. That's it. You will never retire on that money. So your 401k takes a 20% hit, and you look at your account and you're like, I lost $2,000. You're going to go, huh? The boomers, on the other hand, who have 500 to $1 million in retirement accounts, go, I just lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the media, the machine, the politics, the nation continually says the young don't matter. I'm telling you what's going to happen in 10 years, man. These Gen Z kids, not all of them, but enough of them cutouts, are going to be in their 30s. And they're not going to be sitting around doing nothing. They're going to be looting, stealing, and they're going to be spreading these ideologies to a younger generation further left behind. You know, people ask why wealth inequality is so bad. The simple answer, logically, mechanically, is that it creates a power class, a group of people with a lot of wealth that makes it very difficult for upward mobility. This means that there's a population that feels they cannot acquire a standard of living. And houses are extremely expensive and owned by a very few. And so they simply say, we did not elect these people, and we can easily overpower them. Like in the movie Bug's Life or Ants or whatever. What was it, Ants? Where the grasshoppers were in charge or something? I don't know, whatever. You get the point. Take a look at this from ABC 30. A man walked into a Walgreens in Madeira and killed an employee because police say he had a grudge against large pharmacies. Madeira Police Chief Gino Chiaramonte said Narcisco, what a name, is it Narciso, really? Gallardo Fernandez entered the store and opened fire, killing Eric Velasquez. It appeared the killing was random, as police say there was no known relation between them. Fernandez allegedly shot at other employees and customers as they left the store. The chief said it appeared that Fernandez drove more than 80 miles. He was taken into custody outside the store parking lot, which was captured in a police body cam footage. When interviewed, the chief said that Fernandez told them he hates big pharmacies. However, Charamonte added they have not yet found any connection between that hatred and the broader healthcare system, and did not see it as inspired by Luigi Mangione, the man accusing Brian Thompson. I don't believe they're isolated. And if they are, it's actually worse. Imagine this scenario. A guy goes online and is indoctrinated and radicalized. So he goes and commits this shooting. It's terrible. It should never happen. But he did it through influence. Okay, that's worrying because we can see the spread of radicalization. Imagine this guy, generally just through his own thought processes and development, came to hate pharmacies and decided to go kill pharmacy employees. This would mean that there is an independent emergent phenomenon among individuals to get violent. That would be substantially worse. We can isolate and control for radicalization. But if people are generally just saying that they want to take things into their own hands and go violent, that means it won't stop with this guy. And there's probably a lot of other people that are isolated and unrelated and not following this who are starting to feel the same way. I hope that is not the case. Over the post-millennial, we have an update on the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Would-be Trump assassin Ryan Ruth tried to get Stinger missile from Ukraine, planned to run to Mexico after attempt. Quote, send me an RPG or Stinger and I'll see what I can do, he said. This guy was a left-aligned psychopath. He was thwarted. This is what? Within the span of, like a couple months, a month, there were multiple attempts on Trump's life. When the first attempt happened, we were in Wisconsin, the Timcast crew. We were getting ready for the RNC. And so we had just pulled in. We had arrived recently. The crew was still setting up all the equipment. And so I and the missus popped over to Potawatomi to play a hand of poker. And I was sitting at the table and there was a rep, a Republican rep as well, state rep. And the moment the news rang out, we both looked at our phones and saw each other that Trump had just taken a bullet to the head. Fortunately, just the side of his head, and survived. It's crazy to think. The second time it happened, once again, I was out with the missus at the mall and ran outside, pulled up my phone and said, this may or may not be an assassination attempt. And it was. They really tried to kill Donald Trump. They really did. But by the grace of God, Donald Trump tilted his head and the bullet grazed his ear. How absolutely insane is that? The sentiment is still with us. On X, Andy No says, far left account in Alabama is using Blue Sky to distribute stickers calling for the assassination of Elon Musk. Blue Sky has become an echo chamber of leftists, and many of them use the platform to post death and terroristic threats with impunity. We saw protests at Grand Central the other day. They shut down the trains. It's been reported. Massive Free Luigi projected on Manhattan building. The projection took place, this is February 21st, depicting him as a saint. They don't call for freeing Luigi because they believe he's been wrongly arrested. They're doing it because they think he did it. Now, I am of the opinion it may not have been Luigi Mangione who actually committed the assassination. We don't know for sure. There are, and this is fair, there are some people, namely if you go to the Free Luigi subreddit, I would say you have a mixture of people who are saying there's no evidence against him, release him, but the sentiment behind it is still largely they think he did it, they just wanted him to get out. I would simply say the bushy eyebrows do not match up with the initial surveillance video footage, so I don't know for sure. The only thing that matters is that a man has been arrested for this crime, and for this, the left has been cheering for it, which is a representation of where we're headed in this country with what people want to happen. And it continues. From 770 KTTH, rants exclusive. Explosion. Fire at Tesla charging station in Lacey as anti-Musk violence continues. This is from today at 8 a.m. The violent attacks on Tesla stations have not stopped. The vandalism has not stopped. In fact, it seems to be maintaining. I don't want to say it's getting worse because we did see someone shoot up a Tesla dealership and firebomb it. And there were a couple dealerships that were firebombed in parking lots, but it is sustaining itself. The left is not backing down from this. So let's read this story about the latest development. Of course, my friends, as we approach that 30-minute mark, smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Make sure you join our Discord server at timcast.com to participate, be active, know what is going on in the world before everybody else. You get that Discord server at timcast.com. We got 20,000 plus users, and you're going to be sharing information, learning new things, influencing the culture war, and being a part of everything. Plus, you get to call in to the uncensored call-in show Monday through Thursday on our Timcast IRL show at rumble.com/TimcastIRL. Here's the story. A Tesla charging station in Lacey was apparently targeted in a Tuesday early morning attack. No one was hurt or injured. According to two sources, there were reports of an explosion at the Tesla charging station. Lacey City Council member Lenny Greenstein confirmed to the Jason Rants show on KTTH that he was told there was a fire at the charging station, but did not have any additional details. According to one source, the FBI is aware of the incident and may be on scene. The FBI Seattle field office did not confirm this detail with the Jason Rants show. The Tesla charging station is located at 614 Sleater Kinney Road, southeast on Tuesday morning. Police were still at the scene, according to a worker at a nearby business. The story is developing. Indeed. Now, this story updated as of a couple weeks ago. The FBI launched a task force, a Tesla task force, to investigate threats against the company. This we did cover quite a bit, but I bring up just to highlight that Cash, Dan, and Pam, they ain't sitting by and doing nothing. They are paying attention. Now, the funny thing about this, we got a shout out to our buddy Freedom Tunes, old Seamus Coughlin over there. He made a funny cartoon pointing out the hypocrisy of the Tesla protests and the violent extremism. They are simultaneously vandalizing cars while telling people to sell them. You can't. You vandalized them. And he does a comic where a guy's got a Tesla and they're protesting it, and they're like, "Sell your car." They set it on fire. And he's like, "Well, I would, but you set it on fire. I mean, I don't know what I can get for it now." And they're like, "You got to sell it." And then basically he sells it to some guy who it's like some guy says, "Okay, I'll buy it." Got a discount rate. Then they start smashing the windows. He's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And they're like, "Sell it." And he's like, "But I just bought it." And they're like, "Sell it." These people are illogical. They're insane. Who is going to be able to sell a Tesla when you're vandalizing and destroying Teslas? The New York Times says used Tesla market heats up as owners sell to protest Elon Musk. These people are evil. The New York Times, these people are evil. Neil E. Boudet, you know he's lying. People aren't selling to protest Elon. They fear for the safety of themselves and their families because people are attacking them in the street. A woman got punched in the face over and over again. Cars have been set on fire and shot at. And they want to tell you they're selling them because they're like, "We don't like Elon." I'm sure some people are. But I'll tell you, most people don't know nothing about nothing. I mean that half jokingly. The average person who owns a Tesla doesn't know what's going on. They don't pay attention to what's happening. All they know is someone came by and threatened their life. Or they saw somebody else who did. And they said, "I don't want to have this car anymore." The New York Times says, a few times a month, they say, for the last several months, Ken Harvey has been cultivating a budding side business for his Honda and Mazda dealerships, selling used Teslas. A few times a month, he picks up a few pre-owned Teslas at a local automobile auction and offers them for sale. Often at surprisingly affordable prices, thanks to a $4,000 federal tax credit they get when they purchase it. Some consumers who qualify, blah, blah, blah. He says, "We sold 3 in the last week, maybe 20 since the beginning of the year." Now, he says, whose family owns 4 Honda dealerships and 2 Mazda franchises in Alameda County. "We have 3 in stock now and 2 are on the way. They won't stay around more than a few days." I would just like to highlight this. The absurdity. They wrote that they're selling their cars to protest Elon Musk. But these people are so dumb, they didn't include what they should have. They could have called it used Tesla market heats up as people buy used vehicles to support Elon Musk. Homie, if the market is heating up and cars are being sold, it means people are buying them. And if your insinuation is that they're doing it to protest Musk, then the insinuation is that people are buying them to support Musk. Now, don't get me wrong, some people are buying Teslas to support Elon Musk. But this is how the media lies to you. The reality is there are people who are scared and they're selling their vehicles, and there are some people who are not scared and they're buying the vehicles. Some people who are buying them are getting that at a premium rate. You know, it'd be really funny. Antifa end up buying the cars. You know, it's almost like Antifa window repair. It's a gag from Ryan Long and Danny Polishchuk. They're Antifa window repair. They run around and protest, smashing up windows, then show up the next day and say, here's my card, we'll fix your windows. The left, how funny would this be? Tell everybody to sell their Teslas and then show up the next day, mask off, and say, I'll buy it. See how the game is played. It's almost like that old joke where the guy goes in his backyard, hears a gunshot go off, so he runs to his backyard, and there's his neighbor shooting a gun in the ground, and he says, don't worry, I do that once a month to keep the property taxes down. Yeah. Let's not forget when Bill Burr said, free Luigi on Jimmy Kimmel. Let's play this. Okay, wait. Do I have this muted or is it just not working? Okay, we'll unmute it.
But CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi.
They laughed.
I love how they acted surprised. Why did that happen? I have no idea. He wrote on the bullets why it happened.
Oh, we're back to Luigi. Okay, yeah.
I never left Luigi.
Well, Bill Burr got confronted on this, and he snapped because I got to say, Bill, bro, grow some balls, okay? Grow some balls. This guy is surface level, weak. He gets called out by some journalists because they said, yo, you said free Luigi. And he goes, I'm a clown. Don't look at me. I don't know. Oh, homie doesn't want to take responsibility. Hey, let's play a game, Bill. Let's play this game. This game's called A Dude Went to a Walgreens and Shot and Murdered an Employee who was probably making $13-14 an hour. So when you come out and yell those things, advocating for murder of individuals, what do you think's going to happen? How about somebody ask Bill Burr that? Say, hey, Bill, remember when you went on TV twice and said free Luigi and laughed about it? Then when reporters questioned you, you say, hey, don't look at me. I didn't do anything. Did you know that a guy went to a Walgreens and said, I hate pharmacies, and shot and killed an employee and tried to kill several more? Do you not realize when you advocate for assassinations and murder and laugh about it, this is what happens? A normalization of extremist ideology and behavior. Bill Burr won't back down. What do you mean? He literally backed down like a whiny little baby. The comedian snapped at a group of reporters who pressed him about current events at the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor ceremony. In a viral video circulating X, a journalist told Burr she had been reading up on his support for Luigi Mangione and asked him to clarify his previous comments. He says, I don't think you read up on it because what I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of people said, according to Free Luigi. Here you go. Let's what do we have this?
Tell us about your reaction to Luigi Mangione. I was reading up, that perhaps you've been supportive of what he did. What is your take on that?
If you were reading up, I don't think you read up on it. Because I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of people said.
Some people took it that way. So could you clarify what you think?
No, I'm not going to just have some controversial moment so you can get clicks. I'm not doing that. I'm here for Conan. I'm not doing all of this. What are you going to bring up next? The Middle East? I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
I was just
He's not qualified to talk about it, but he went twice on public TV and said free Luigi. I think one was an interview, one was on TV. Now he's backing down. They said he won't back down. He's literally backing down.
Global warming.
You said about Elon that he was ruining Earth, I saw on The View. You're critical of him. What do you think of all the boycotts, like even the violence
I don't watch
that's
the
going
news.
on in Tesla?
I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram.
What a coward.
I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian. You're a journalist.
Comedians are on top of current events.
No. That's weak. That's you guys passing the buck. You guys need to have balls again, which you don't. You guys always goes, should we be thinking this? Duh. You guys present stuff like that. You guys used to have balls. You need to get your balls back. And it's not
Bill. That's big talk from a guy who said free Luigi several times, went on Jimmy Kimmel and says, anyone surprised this is happening? Everybody laughed and cheered. Following this, we saw Colbert, Kimmel, and Jordan Klepper all effectively make jokes about what was going on. Now, respect to Klepper, he didn't celebrate. He actually criticized the audience. Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism. And so here's Bill Burr now when challenged on his support for assassinations and political extremism. He's backing down and his balls are curling up inside his body. Bill, you are a coward. You're a coward. Hey, man, if you came out and said to those journalists, I'm not here to talk about this, I'm here for Conan, but I said what I said, I stand by it, and I'm going to leave it at that, I'd say, okay, I think you're a bad guy. I think you are destabilizing our country, and there were ways to solve these problems outside of political violence. But that's not what he said. He doubles down. He goes into it and says, no, I'm a dancing clown. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch the news. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Stand up. Defend what you said, bro. Man, talk about a whiny baby. Pam Bondi is now receiving death threats because she's seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. She says, quote, I was receiving death threats for seeking the death penalty. Listen, these people have proven they mean it. These are not idle threats against the AG. They mean it. Now, I'll tell you where we're going, because I got a lot more to break down on this one. What percent of Gen Z has a 401k? You know what? Forget about it. Let's not ask Google AI. Let's pull up ChatGPT. What percent of Gen Z has a 401k? I asked it. You know what I love about ChatGPT? How it tries to manipulate you with leftist lies. Look at the game they play. I said, what percent of Gen Z has a 401k? It said, approximately 62% of Gen Z employees participated in their employer's 401k plans as of 2021, a significant increase from 30% in 06. The rise is largely attributed to the adoption of automatic enrollment features. Whoa. I said, that's not what I asked. You're right. Let's get specific. As of the most recent data, 62% of Gen Z workers who are eligible enrolled in one. But if you're asking what percent of the entire Gen Z population, not just workers or those with access, the number is much lower. 30% of Gen Z overall. Students, unemployed, part-time, etc. See, I didn't ask of people who succeeded how many of them have taken a 401k. I want to know about all of Gen Z, because the people who are advocating for violence and murder aren't typically going to be those with stable careers. I said, what percent of millennials have a 401k? The response? Approximately 75% of millennials are currently contributing to a retirement plan, such as a 401k. That's not what I asked. Got it. You're asking specifically what percent of all millennials have a 401k. Roughly 60 to 65%. Hey, that ain't bad, right? That ain't bad. What's the average amount of a millennial 401k? As of the most recent data, approximately 49,000. However, the median balance is 15 to 20,000. Hey, let's just be nice. Millennials, let's say you got 50k saved up for retirement. Good luck. You're 40 years old, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, and you got 50k. Well, that'll help with your rainy day fund. Maybe someone will get sick and you'll pay half of your medical bill. But you're not retiring off 50k. Laughably insane. You cannot retire on that. The system doesn't work. And there aren't young people being born at large enough numbers to sustain the Social Security system. So what's going to happen to you, millennial? Yeah, unsurprisingly, a lot of millennials are losing their minds. Now, what about Gen Z? Even less have retirement accounts. Now, you might say, well, they're young. Now, you take a look at how the system is built up. You take a look at the past generations, where we were in terms of, Gen X. They started buying stocks when they were in their 20s. Millennials started buying stocks, when they were 20s, 10 times less. Gen Z in their 20s don't even have a single percentage point, it would seem. They don't own stocks, corporate equities, mutual funds, or anything like this. They are viewing themselves largely as a lost generation. That doesn't mean you can't succeed. It's possible they succeed. But they're largely being left behind. Now take a look at how the left, the political left, views this country. And I'll tell you where you get an untenable situation. Here's Kyle Kulinski insulting and mocking American factory workers. In this video that he posted, it's playing what I assume is Chinese music. I'll turn that down. And there's obese Americans working at sewing machines. And this is the insult that the left sends to the right, to Trump supporters. Here's some American factory workers making phones. What's wrong with making a phone? Make America great again, it says. Okay, and? Here's another image that I was showing the other day. This is from Oliver Alexander. It's a guy in a MAGA hat wearing a ribbon that says "Fell for it again." Donald Trump with a shotgun says, "Sew the effing sock." And the man says, "There seems to have been a mistake. I plan on owning a factory and making millions." That's how the left views you. Here's a photo of Mike Lindell's My Pillow factory with a bunch of factory workers holding up the pillows that they've made in this country for you as Americans and anybody else in the world that wants to buy one. You cannot simultaneously have a group of people influenced by psychopaths who hate the American worker and who then tell Gen Z, you cannot succeed. We have a problem in which the political system and the market overwhelmingly favor the elderly, increasingly, creating limited opportunities for Gen Z. They can't buy houses. They can't make enough money. Jobs are hard to come by. They can't have families, and they're getting angry. But at the same time, the pressure from prominent liberals on the left is you should be ashamed of yourself if you took a job in a factory like this. Look, there's middle-aged people working here of all different backgrounds. It's diverse and inclusive. Everybody works on the assembly line to some degree, and you make pillows and you sell pillows. No. So what's a young person to do when they turn on their media and they are being ridiculed and mocked? Factory job ain't for you. Nah, you could get a good salary working in a factory making things in this country, but you'll be ridiculed and belittled. How dare you? So then what do? Either choose to take the shunning of the prominent liberal personalities. Maybe they do. And that's why many young people are shifting to the right. Or they say, I can't do that job. I'd be disowned. I'd be mocked. But then I have no money. Guess I'll just go in my basement and play video games. Or some people just get really angry. Real mad. And then they say, you know what? The system is broken. Here's what I love. Jon Stewart tears into Fox News hosts for urging viewers not to panic over the economy. Here, I don't know how long this is, but I don't want to play too much. I'm not going to play his clip. They just have the transcript here. Fox News host Laura Ingraham, don't panic, calm down, everything's going to be okay. Chris Payne, I would not worry at all. Jesse Waters, the Dow is actually in the same place it was in August. Charlie Kirk, do me a favor, don't look at your stock portfolio. Janine Pirro, you know what? I don't really care about my 401k. Stewart pulled a face before intimidating Pirro. Live, laugh, love. That's what I always say. You know what I say to all of you? It's 401k somewhere. When did the right become so chill? Aren't you the Bud Light is turning my kid trans, folks, but economic meltdown and you're getting all philosophical? Questioned Stewart before playing a clip of Benny Johnson claiming losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. Like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. I got to say, I don't know where that, oh, here we go. Is that, he's got Benny. Benny, he got you.
It's turning my kids trans, folks. But economic meltdown and you're getting all philosophical?
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. Were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing.
Except your money.
Except money.
I'm not on board with
losing
that, to be
money
honest.
Costs you money. It's the definition of losing money.
We get
and
it.
I know you go, well, it's going to be worth it to get the character of the country that we want back again.
Character?
But we have no f***ing idea if that's actually what's going to happen. You're all acting like the tariff regime is a tried and true remedy. Oh, of course, this is the medicine that's always prescribed. Except the last time it was tried 100 years ago, we had a Great Depression. So how does this work?
It's just a big game of economic operation as he's sticking things in, trying to take out tariffs.
It's like, when you're my age, you got to get a colonoscopy. You need a full colonic, to feel better. You know what I mean?
Rat poison can kill somebody in the wrong dosages, but in the right dosages, that can be very healthy for the patient.
They're not wrong. I'm gonna play a little bit more of this because the end result is a little bit embarrassing.
So everyone relax. This is merely a routine rat poison colonoscopy. What's the right dosage of rat poison? Oh, if you get enough of it, hey, your headache will be gone. And by the way, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but the colonoscopy guy, his name is John Tobacco?
Indeed it is. Okay, anyway. Well, here's the real time, as I'm recording this, latest market change. Oh, it's up. 1.46, 1.141%. Okay. So the market dropped down and people lost a decent amount of money. Full disclosure, I lost about $100,000 on my stocks. I don't have any kind of like, I don't do stocks in terms of having a manager choose for me. I invest in companies that I like. And all in all, 100 grand. Yeah. That's my retirement. And it sucks. But my bigger concern is not me. Now, I agree to a certain extent with Jon Stewart. I meet him halfway. It is silly how many people on the right are saying like, who cares? Who cares? The market's going down. And I'm like, retirees? Like, this is bad news for them. My counterpoint is, I don't know what Trump's plan is. I voted for him. And so I do think there is a plan. I'm not saying it will work. I can also stress the purpose of this hour-long show right now is to highlight Gen Z and millennials are losing their minds. $50K is the average. $50,000 is the average retirement for a 40-year-old right now. And that's not even the real number. The median is $15,000 to $20,000. Good luck earning your $1 million you're going to need for a basic retirement. With the way inflation is going, the idea is supposed to be that you save up something like $1 million. Maybe not, maybe $500,000. You put that $500,000 into a properly managed fund with a historical return of about 7%, allowing you to extract maybe 3 and 4% per year without reducing your principal. That's going to give you a microscopic budget for survival. That's what retirement is supposed to look like. Congratulations, Gen Z. Congratulations, millennials. At this rate, when you put that good old let's be nice and say $20,000 in a properly managed fund, good luck with your $1,400 per year to live on. So what I can say is, when Jon Stewart's like, who cares? I'm sitting here being like, okay, something has to change. Otherwise, we go belly up. The reason why we are seeing an escalation of violence and calls for violence on the left and among young people is because they don't see a way out. And Jon Stewart's just laughing, being like, but our 401ks. The fascinating thing to me is who's in that audience watching him? You know, are there drone liberal leftists all laughing in the audience who don't own stocks? Can I just point this out? Can we just, we'll just jump back real quick to the Benny Johnson clip. Let's play it again.
You're getting all philosophical?
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. Like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing.
Except money.
What is the age of the person that is laughing right now in the audience? What is the age? I'd estimate late 30s, early 40s, largely. What percent of this country owns stocks? Well, 93% of corporate equities and mutual funds are owned by the top 10% of the country. Surprise, surprise, that's probably who's sitting there in the audience at a Jon Stewart show, because who else can take the day off from work to sit in a daytime audience for Jon Stewart for a pre-record to be put up later that day at like 11 p.m.? I think they record at like 4 or something. I don't know. They're in New York. You can see where they film. There's a line out the door. Who can take off work for this? People who have lots of money and are going to laugh. Now, to be fair, I don't know the full context of what Benny was saying, but I think it's fair to say when he said it costs you nothing, he meant spiritually and in the long term. Although I will admit, it is quite silly to say losing money costs you nothing, because I got it before John did, accept money. I ain't going to play this game. I think it's silly. A lot of people on the right are like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And I'm like, no, guys. It is bad that people are losing money in their retirements. What's worse is that we have a young generation of violent extremists bubbling up. Idle hands, devil's playground. If we do not get a hold of this, we're doomed. And you know what? It may be too late. It may be too late. These young people already have their worldview. They're not going to create work ethic. They have been raised. They are adults. Their brains have sealed shut. That's how it works. The most important years of a person's life, 0 through 5. Then you have formative years from 6 to 13. Of course, then you have your teenage years. These are all, to a degree, formative in a certain sense, but it's compounded. Who a person is largely influenced by ages 6 to 13. What they're capable of doing is largely influenced by 0 through 5. I'm sorry, this is reality. Now, you can change this, but there are limitations. Again, this is not my opinion. Take a look at the research and the data. When they find like a 17-year-old girl who's like locked in a basement her whole life and these things happen, she can't speak. She can't learn to speak. There have been numerous instances where the neural pathways did not form in early childhood to give them the abilities to understand. Some people are tone deaf. They weren't exposed to music at a young age, so they can't differentiate between tones or know how to emulate or create. Some people played baseball since they were 0. The dad had a little baseball bat in their hands, joking around. As they got older, they got him t-ball. Then they had him play baseball, and these people have a fundamental wired understanding of the sport. The best are always playing since they were real little. For us, the unfortunate thing is, I don't know that we can turn it around. The moment you identify the problem, it may be too late. It's like a sarin gas attack. Do you guys know about this? I got bad news for those in war. The moment you notice someone, this is the crazy thing about war. You look down the street, you see a guy flip over and people are seizing, you're already dead. Unless, of course, the gas went a different direction. But typically, that's how scary these things are. I guess what I would say is the moment you start to notice that you've got a generation where half are advocating for violence and assassinations, you're not going to rewire these people's brains overnight. And that may mean in 10 years, as the older generation starts to age out, the younger generation takes over, those extremist ideologies aren't going anywhere. So laugh it up, John. I hope the stock market was worth it for you and your boomer buddies. I hope it worked out for you guys with your retirements. And I do mean it. I don't want anybody to lose money. Again, I'll stress. I hope Trump gets a handle on this one. It matters that people do better. But I can tell you all, I look at Japan, and like I've mentioned before, the elderly climb into the Fukushima reactor, and they said, we're old. We've lived. It's time for us to give something to the younger generation. I'm like, wow. Yeah, we don't do that here. Here in these United States, we're like, sacrifice the young for the old. Let's go, baby. And it ain't going to play out well because that system does not last very long. Let's grab some of your rants here and see what you guys have to say. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We're going to be sending you over to Russell Brand in just a moment, so don't miss out. He actually has just started to go live, so we'll send you over there in about a minute, but I'll try and grab a couple of these. Arsonist says, first, Tim, look at the bright side. If the system crashes and society collapses, food, property value, and everything else will be 1 9mm round. Bullets will be very valuable. Stay Peaceful says, the County Electoral Fairness Act proposes each county gets an equal vote for the presidential electoral count. No more gerrymandering. No more apportionment fraud. Interesting. Huron X Bearcat says, my veteran buddy is still in need of help with paying his vet bills from losing his service dog. Please donate at GiveSendGo. Search Help Wesley. Also, please tell Ian he's my favorite. We'll convey such a message. KWA says, with tic-tac tariffs, should be treated same way. Oh, with tick and tariffs? What is that? If China will not allow Rumble, Trump should ban all China media apps. Interesting. No Amazon, China, no Temu in U.S. Same way with free speech in EU and Canada. Very interesting. Liberate USA says, if you believe Trump's survival was the grace of God, I would be going the way of Russell Brand if I were you. I had the same thoughts and was radically saved a couple weeks to a month later. Belief in God does not mean you must be a Christian, unfortunately, for Christians. While I do believe that this is a Judeo-Christian nation and Christian moral ethics have framed how this country operates, which is superior to all other nations. I really do think so in terms of its laws and its structures. I do believe in God, but I do not believe in Christianity. And I would liken my view of God as more of an Abrahamic God, but not following any specific scripture or religion. My friends, it is time to join our friend Russell Brand over on at his show, which is just about to begin. So we'll initiate that raid and send you guys all over there. Thank you all so much for hanging out for this noon live show. Again, subscribe to this channel, share the show with everyone you know, castbrew.com, buy some coffee. Promo code RUMBLE30 for 30% off everything. I do think we're losing money on that, so I don't know how long that'll last. But the Russell Brand raid is ignition sequence, liftoff imminent, gassing up the raid rocket. This is what it says. It said ignition sequence started again. Okay, we don't need two of them, unless we do. Raid has begun. My friends, thank you all so much for hanging out. We'll have more segments throughout the day. Then we're back tonight at 8 p.m. at Timcast IRL. It is true. Yesterday, I had a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. There were several government officials there, and other prominent individuals were it wasn't just me. There were other people there. But we operate under Chatham House rules, so nothing will be attributed, and I will not reveal the names or identities of anybody who was there. But I was able to ask some questions. I believe the conversation was interesting. And I will convey more tonight on Timcast IRL. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will see you all then.